November 2025. Germany unveils the Leopard 2A8, the first tank built from scratch in 33 years. It is not revolutionary. Rheinmetall already built that, the KF-51 Panther. It has a 130mm gun, an unmanned turret, and a 50% longer kill range. Germany said no. Italy said yes, 23 billion euros. Hungary said yes, 288 million euros. Why did Berlin bet on evolution when revolution was on the table? Because the 2A8 can be fielded in 2027. The Panther will not be ready until 2030. Europe does not have time to wait. This is the opening narration. On November 19, 2025, Munich hosts a scene not witnessed in over 3 decades. Germany's first all-new tank rolls out of the factory. The contract behind it is blunt: 123 Leopard 2A8s, 2.9 billion euros, with deliveries starting in 2027. The German Ministry of Defense does not just want new steel for its own battalions. The very first batch is reserved for Lithuania, where planners see a hard deadline. Credible NATO armor must be on the ground before the end of the decade. The urgency is spelled out in euros and unit counts. Each vehicle represents not just a line on a spreadsheet, but a commitment to deterrence in the Baltic, where the timeline is measured in months, not years. For Berlin, the Leopard 2A8 is more than a procurement, it is a bet on readiness. The order signals the start of a modernization drive, not just for Germany, but for a network of allies who cannot afford to wait for theoretical breakthroughs. The clock is running, and the 2A8 is the answer Berlin can deliver now. Leopard 2A8 stands as a study in evolutionary design. Beneath its angular armor, the familiar 120mm L55A1 smoothbore gun remains the centerpiece, a deliberate choice to keep firepower compatible with NATO's vast ammunition stockpiles. The engine and transmission are carried over from the 2A7V, preserving logistics chains that have served European armies for decades. But the upgrades are targeted at the threats of the 2020s, not the battlefields of the Cold War. The most visible leap comes from the integration of the Trophy Active Protection System, a technology with a combat record dating to 2018. Trophy's radar and countermeasure launchers now ring the turret, offering a standoff shield against anti-tank missiles and drones, a response to lessons from Ukraine and Syria, where top attack threats have become routine. The 2A8's roof is reinforced for exactly this reason, hardening the tank against loitering munitions and vertical strikes. Inside, the crew of 4 works in a cockpit built around the NGVA digital architecture. This networked backbone links sensors, battle management, and remote weapons, providing 360-degree situational awareness and enabling rapid software upgrades. At 64 tons, the 2A8 is no lighter than its predecessors, but every kilogram is measured against survivability and systems integration. The result is a platform that trades revolutionary leaps for proven, field-ready enhancements, prioritizing readiness, interoperability, and the certainty of delivery by 2027. Berlin's decision-making process came down to 5 non-negotiable priorities. First, the Leopard 2A8 could be delivered on an accelerated timeline. Existing production lines meant new tanks would be rolling out by 2027, not years later. Second, the 2A8's design allowed seamless compatibility with NATO's 120mm ammunition stocks, guaranteeing that logistics and resupply would not become a liability in a crisis. Third, the integration of Trophy Active Protection was possible without a lengthy development cycle. Germany could field a combat-tested defensive suite rather than gamble on unproven systems. Fourth, the program carried lower technical and financial risk by building on a platform already familiar to crews and maintainers, avoiding the pitfalls of an untested autoloader or a new gun caliber. Fifth, the cost per unit remained within reach of the defense budget, making it possible to modernize at scale without sacrificing other priorities. Beyond these factors, Berlin saw an opportunity to anchor Europe's armored future around a proven design. By making Lithuania the first recipient, Germany positioned the 2A8 as both a testbed for upgrades and a de facto export standard for allies on tight timelines. The message was clear: readiness and interoperability today, outweigh hypothetical advantages that might not arrive before the next crisis. The KF-51 Panther burst onto the scene at Eurosatory 2022, making no attempt to hide its ambition. Rheinmetall's engineers built it from the ground up, aiming for a leap beyond the evolutionary path of existing platforms. The centerpiece is the 130mm RH-130 L-52 main gun, delivering up to 50% greater effective range than NATO's 120mm standard, and pushing kinetic energy into territory once reserved for future concepts. The autoloader, with its 20-round carousel and 4-second reload cycle, drops the crew to 3, all packed within a protected hull. This is not just a nod to survivability, it is a statement about automation and doctrine for the next era of armored warfare. At 59 tons, the Panther undercuts its rivals on weight, promising greater agility and easier rail transport across Europe. The unmanned turret option moves all crew below the turret ring, further reducing vulnerability. A digital backbone and AI-powered sensors bring target detection and engagement times into single-digit seconds. The KF-51U demonstrator shown in 2024 adds modularity, offering either the 130mm gun or, for early adopters like Hungary, a 120mm gun to bridge the NATO logistics gap. The integration of Hero 120 loitering munitions and drone launchers puts organic reconnaissance and strike power on board, blurring the lines between tank and battlefield node. Unlike the Leopard 2A8, the Panther is funded largely by private capital. Rheinmetall is betting on export orders and a new industrial base, with the risk and potential payoff squarely on its own books. The Panther is not just a tank, it is a wager that the next revolution in armored warfare will start before the decade is out. Hungary's Ministry of Defense signed a €288 million contract with Rheinmetall in December 2023, putting the country at the front of the Panther queue. But the order was not for the full-spec 130mm Revolution. Instead, Hungary opted for the KF-51 EVO, a variant armed with the proven 120mm L-55A1 gun, identical to the Leopard 2A8s, and fully compatible with NATO's existing ammunition reserves. The choice was pragmatic: start production sooner, field a tank that fits seamlessly into current logistics, and avoid the risks of betting everything on an untested caliber. At Zalaegerszeg, the new production line was built around this logic, focusing first on what could be delivered and maintained with minimal disruption. The contract's fine print, however, leaves the door open. Hungary retains the option to upgrade to the 130mm gun once the industrial base is ready and supply chains are established. This incremental path sidesteps the ammunition gap that haunts early Panther adopters, while still keeping an eye on future overmatch. Quiet rumors in Budapest suggest that Hungarian and Italian officials compared notes on how to synchronize their Panther programs, but no formal alliance has been disclosed. For now, Hungary's approach is a case study in hedging: field what works today, but keep the upgrade path clear for tomorrow. In October 2024, Italy rewrote the rules of European armored procurement with a single stroke of the pen. The Ministry of Defense signed a joint venture with Rheinmetall and Leonardo, locking in a €23 billion program that will reshape the country's land forces for a generation. The deal covers up to 380 KF-51 Panthers and 1,050 Lynx infantry fighting vehicles, but the numbers only hint at the scale of ambition. 60% of the work, assembly, systems integration, and final delivery will happen on Italian soil. For Leonardo, this isn't just a contract, it's a declaration of industrial sovereignty. Executives in Rome secure control over turret and avionics integration, ensuring that key technologies remain under Italian stewardship. The agreement spells out a delivery timeline: Lynx vehicles by 2027, Panthers rolling out by 2030. Italian officials point to the clarity of the budget and the domestic share as the deciding factors, terms that KNDS, the builder of the Leopard 2A8, could not match. This pivot doesn't just create a new production line. It establishes a rival ecosystem within NATO, with its own supply chains, training standards, and logistical backbone. As the ink dries, Italy's bet on the Panther signals that the contest over Europe's next-generation tank is no longer just about platforms. It's about who controls the future of armored warfare and on whose terms. NATO's logistics planners face a dilemma that goes far beyond the factory floor. The Leopard 2A8's 120mm cannon guarantees access to deep stockpiles of ammunition already distributed across alliance depots, ensuring that supply trucks and forward bases can keep tanks firing without delay. The KF-51 Panther, with its new 130mm gun, promises overmatch but breaks that chain. There are no NATO-wide reserves, no standardized supply, and the timeline for new production stretches into the next decade. Even the Panther's autoloader, while reducing crew, introduces a layer of maintenance complexity unfamiliar to most alliance mechanics. For sustainment officers, every caliber and crew configuration is a risk calculation. Field what you can keep supplied and serviced now, or gamble on a future where the right shells and spare parts arrive on time. The split between Leopard and Panther has consequences far beyond procurement. With Germany anchoring the Leopard 2A8 ecosystem and Italy and Hungary investing in the KF-51, Europe's tank industry now runs on two incompatible tracks. The Franco-German MGCS project, a next-generation main battle tank once scheduled for 2035, has slipped into the 2040s as partners reassess their roles and ambitions. KNDS, builder of the Leopard, faces mounting pressure from leaked schedules and persistent rumors of a Leopard 2AX successor, even as order books swell past 350 tanks across NATO. On the other side, the Panthers' backers talk of 380 units and a new industrial base. If both tracks deliver, Europe could field more than 730 new tanks by 2035. But the alliance now faces the cost and complexity of sustaining two rival supply chains. For planners, the question is no longer just which tank to buy, it is which future to join. Europe stands at a crossroads. One path fields proven armor before the decade ends, anchoring deterrence in the near term. The other waits for a leap in firepower and automation, but risks missing the next crisis. In tank warfare, late means never. Which future would you choose? Leopard 2A8 buys Europe. Immediate deterrence, ready by 2027. KF-51 aims for dominance, but only if it lands before the threat does. In armored warfare, the tank that arrives too late is just a blueprint. Which risk would you take? Drop your perspective in the comments.